We will begin Rules and Public Policy. Today is Monday, March 9th. It is 6 p.m. First of all members are here, so we do have our quorum. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Okay. I do have one change to the agenda. We will not be approving the minutes this time around. We'll do it next time. Because of the switcheroo with the computers and all of that, the documentation it's in a computer. We just can't log in and get it. So we'll get that figured out this week, but we'll definitely work on those minutes next time. And there's no members of the public here, so we can move on. So the next thing I had on the agenda, and I did kind of switch it around a little bit because we do have more time. So I wanted to first talk about the Iron Mountain offsite public storage bullet point. The reason being is our current contract expires this May, and we need to really figure out what this is going to look like. Do we need to call a committee of the whole? Do we need to maybe jointly meet with Budget and Finance so we can just plow through this and get it done? I'd like to know what the committee's thoughts are on that.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Do we know the pricing? I know we heard it once. It is not ingrained in my head to remember what that was. Like, there was a different price for them to bring the files back, and then there was a price for them to store them, and I don't remember those numbers off the top of my head.
So it's $150 a month to do the ongoing data storage.
When you say data, you really mean piece of paper, though, right?
Mm-mm. The information data, the scanned in data. And then there was another fee to store the files that they actually scanned in. And because that was built in the original contract as an annual fee, we just decided to leave it there until May. And so proposedly, if you all agree, then we were just going to renew for whatever the cost is to retain the ongoing storage for data alone, and then bring the paper files back. And then that's what was put in the budget for 2026.
Madam President,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I thought that was the understanding that council was going to, because it was going to be the same price whether or not they continued to May or if we ended the contract, we were going to be charged the same. So we were going to continue to May, and then we were going to look at other options that was more financially sound that we can afford versus continuing on. Did we never proceeded past that point, did we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we didn't give you yep, okay. So, do you remember that? You were looking confused, that's why I paused.
I
I'm
had
sorry.
something different in my head. I thought we were going to leave the physical copies there until May.
Yes, because it was going to cost the same if we
Right.
asked for them back.
But then I thought we were bringing them back here after May so that we didn't have the ongoing fee. And I don't know, why would we have to store them electronically there if they're on our website? That's where my real confusion is.
We don't have to store them electronically there. There's just a fee to store electronically ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a fee to store the paper, the hard copies. And so you are right, we're going to bring them back in May because there's an additional fee that we did not foresee, but it was already built in the original contract.
Right.
So since we were paying for it, so the penalty to bring them back and not continue with the contract was the exact same as leaving them there. So in May, we'll bring them back in-house, but we'll then still only have the digitized fee. And I'm looking up the contract currently.
So if
Madam Chair.
I was just about to say, if we received the digital files of everything they've scanned, what would be the benefit of them continuing to host those documents? That's what I don't understand. If we have them in-house already to host the digital database, essentially, or document storage, we wouldn't need that if we've brought them all in-house, unless I'm misunderstanding.
No, so they're keeping on their, it's on, let me just look at the contract.
Sure.
Because I think that they are, as I understood it, they are keeping the files on their server.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
if I may, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know my real job, we use Iron Mountain, but we use it like as a recovery stage. So I wonder if that's like a disaster recovery
Got
type
it.
thing.
Yeah.
But our stuff is already on the cloud, right? So it's already basically backed up. Like
Madam
we have
Chair.
a host, a web host, and that's where our stuff is, right? It's not on a physical device in this building, is it?
I don't believe so. I believe, I acknowledge that you need to speak next. I just wanted to address this point. So I think the answer is, from what I remember hearing in previous meetings, I was not part of this initial conversation at all, but I do believe that the digital records are here, but I don't know if they're on our website or on our Microsoft server. Either way, it's in the cloud. I mean, but if we have a backup in two different places on our web hosting service and in our Microsoft environment, then I don't know why we would continue to subscribe to an outside entity to manage backups for us.
And ultimately, we would still have the paper copies if
That's right.
Exactly.
push
yeah.
comes to
Reading
shove.
through this, that's right. What you're
Okay.
saying is right.
So I want to let Ms. Carrington speak because she did request to speak next.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So, Ms. 16, I just needed for you to confirm the services that are contracted. I believe there was a misunderstanding, and I wasn't on council at the time of this contract execution. So can you confirm what was agreed to, the time that is rendered for, and then when it expires, is there an automatic renewal? Just help me understand what the city has agreed to.
So this isn't a quote city agreement. This is for council. Council entered into this agreement per Mr. Hedger. So I'm reading back through the document that was sent to me, and the way that Ms. Clear and Mary Jo were alluding to, that is the foundation of the document. And so in order to go forward, we would not still need to maintain the contract in the same way, because we have them on our cloud. And so we would be able to retrieve them. And even what they were saying is, once we bring the documents back in-house, if something were to happen with our cloud, we have them as hard copies as well. But my only caveat to that is, I thought that we were digitizing so that we didn't have to keep the hard copies.
And I think that was the second part that we need to talk about, whether or not the city's existing document retention policy allows for that.
So
The destruction of a paper copy if we have digital copies. I don't know if we've ever tried to cross that path internally.
Around this, I'm sorry, I emailed, and I can email out again, the city's retention policy. There's a records commission, and we have a specific retention policy that is in operation for the city. I emailed that out to you all, or probably not any new people, but I can email it out again. And I truly believe that we are within our ability to get rid of them, but you may want to just hold on to like some of the years, and then as we go forward, maybe decide that. But that's totally up to you all.
Yeah, I think I would like to take a good look at that again. I know I saw it when I was an employee, but that was like years ago when I first was given it, so I don't remember the nuances.
Madam Chair.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So
me.
no city employees or administration has any service similar to Iron Mountain in place?
Yes, our retention policy, ours looks completely different because council initiated this process on their own. So we don't go through Iron Mountain, and We have some of our stuff, like right now we're working to digitize, and it will the natural progression of being digital will happen. Like, for example, the police department, because they're moving to a distribution of tickets that will create a digitized situation, and their retention policies are different every department. So some police records have to be held for a lifetime. We cannot get rid of them ever. And then others, so we would not be on the same cadence as you all.
And I also did want to add that this is part of those 5 videos we're all supposed to watch for the
Yep.
sunshine laws. So I've got through the whole first module, working on the second module, and that is definitely something they go into in detail is how to handle the public records. But somebody mentioned the Records Commission. I'm not going to ask if they've been meeting, as I know the answer to that question already, because there really hasn't been a need to. But if we do come out of this committee after reviewing this policy and decide that we need to kind of modernize it, would there be a possibility of convening that committee, or commission rather, on an ad hoc task to work through this and get us a policy that accounts for hosted documents, digitized documents, and things, just so we make sure that our practices are aligned with our official policy?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
not sure about the ad hoc because there's only 3 members, but,
Go ahead.
yeah, it is.
I apologize.
I forgot about the finance. How could I forget about the finance? But we are planning to meet because there's been so many different things that have come up. So I have looked over certain documents, but that was just me. But we are planning to meet.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, just to kind of we can kill a lot of birds. Okay, I don't want to use that phrase, but solve a lot of issues at the same time with a modernized policy, I think. So, what our takeaway is from here is we're going to, if I just want to summarize for ourselves and for our people watching, we're going to bring the paper copies back.
Okay.
That's what I've heard? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sorry.
So I'm not sure. I mean, I know we need to bring them back, but the issue, because it is an issue, is storage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Could we better economize our space in where the copier is? I mean, because we've got like 5 feet of space up, and some of these things are very, very old. We're not going to be getting to them.
Yeah.
Is there
but
any way we can go
just
up?
remember, sometimes the higher you go, it's a fire hazard.
Sure. Okay.
You
Yeah.
have to maintain a certain level between whatever you stack and the ceiling
Mm-hmm.
to prevent a fire hazard.
it's
So,
18.
I'm just wondering if we can economize some of the space in there, because it's kind of a dead room otherwise,
yeah.
right?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
A couple things. I did send this document out to council at large March of last year. And so I'll redistribute it. Do you want me to redistribute it to your committee specifically so you can talk about
I think, why don't we send it to all of council, and that way we don't have to wonder who has it last, and that we all know we got it at the same time.
Okay.
I think that's what I would recommend.
Then additionally, Mayor's Court, because they're running into digitizing some of their records, there is something that the city can apply for that would go across the whole entire city, with the exception of police, with those forever records, that we can reduce the time in which we need to hold on to hard copies if we're also digitizing. So we're in the process of doing that. And then the last thing that I was going to remind you of is Mr. Hedger was in the process of looking for a fireproof container to put your documents in, or file cabinet, because I know that there's one ordered back there. And so I think that was the idea, to put them in there, because if those are the ones that we are required to, or you are required to retain, you want to make sure that they are also in a fireproof cabinetry. So I know he ordered at least one that's back there waiting for those documents. It'd just be a day when you guys, when they come back in May, to file them in there.
And could we point out which one that is? Because there's like several in there that are all different. So, and a couple of them I know are new, but I don't think that's the ones he purchased.
They are.
Okay. Okay.
The only new ones belong to you all.
Okay, because I know we bought like 4 or 5 of them for this office that were also new. So I didn't know if they, if we could just let me know which ones are which back there, I guess, at some point, so we can say these belong to the finance office and these are council's, just so we have that clear. That would be great.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. 16, do you happen to know, you're looking at the contract, was the only reason I'm asking you, because I don't have it available right now. Is there a date that we have to notify them in order to meet that May deadline and not go past it?
I do not believe so, because they were trying to send them back already. So, but I will look, and can I circle back as you guys go on?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Ms. Zork, what was your question? I didn't hear it.
If there's a date that we have to notify the vendor that we want them
Oh,
sent
deadline,
back.
it went,
Yeah,
like
deadline.
30 days before
Yeah.
or something like that?
So that
Okay.
we don't run
Okay.
past the May and then have to pay longer again.
Actually, I just remembered, no, because we already let them know that we were going to retrieve them in May when the contract was up. So they would not just come back to us.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Dixine, can I have a copy of those who are newly elected to council? Can you ensure, or is it stored in a SharePoint somewhere? We can see this contract or this agreement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else while we're here and on this topic?
Madam President?
Yes.
Can I recap our outcome so I can make
Yes.
sure so we're going to bring the copies back in May, that we don't have to alert them of that. They already know that we want to end the contract. And moving forward, we're going to purchase more fireproof cabinets to store them in the council copy room. Is that accurate?
I think she said there was a couple, at least one back there right now, but I don't think that's going to be big enough based on what I
Yeah, that's why I said we're
remember.
probably, because we're going to have to probably ask council to.
Yeah, I don't know who has, well, I know we could probably get a copy of the receipt or the invoice from the vendor so we can figure out getting more, as needed. Is there a way to get us a copy of that invoice so that we can see where we got them from and how much they were and we can plan accordingly? Is that,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Sorry.
And so then we need to ask council for that. Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ms. Chichester, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
You want the whole thing or just the last part?
The last part where you said ask council.
Oh, we're gonna ask council, because we may need to buy more fireproof cabinets to store those documents, to be able to purchase that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so let me just clarify. Does the city, because I'm hearing like we're duplicating efforts but ending up with the same result, right? So I think we want all documents, whether they are for council, whether they're for police, whether they're for fire, whether they're for administration, everything needs to be stored and saved appropriately. So does the city currently have any fireproof cases? Any kind of fireproof storage?
Finance, I know does.
Yes, we have them appropriately where we need them to be. HR, finance, police. And so all records are stored differently. So finance are stored in the finance space. Police, they're over there with police for records requests. When they request records, that they can pull them quickly and get them out. So.
Sure. So my point in asking that question is I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. If there's already a process in place that works, maybe council can determine if we would like to, I don't want to use the word duplicate, but also utilize that process. Can you provide that process to this committee so that we can see if we want to also utilize whatever file cabinets you all have, whatever storage, not police, not fire, but more so just administration, and i.e. more so finance?
So typically, based on the space that we have to pick something that kind of utilizes where you'll be storing them, because they come all in different sizes. I think the main goal is to make sure that they have all the amenities that if we were to have a flood or, you know, whatever safety threats that we would have towards our hard copies, that they are protected. But I think thus far, because we are displaced and we don't have as much space, that we've ordered per the amount of space that we can get. So I think the idea behind the last ones ordered were to kind of stack them so that we would have enough room and we wouldn't be taking out space. Width-wise, we would be taking up space in terms of height.
Are you going, Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it through a particular vendor, or is it just like Amazon, Kroger, Walmart?
No,
Not Kroger,
it's
but Walmart.
definitely a specified vendor.
Okay.
Christian Hedger ordered those, and so he would have went through a process through finance. So what I'm going to do is follow this meeting with an email to see if we can isolate when they were ordered and what was ordered.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a point of clarification. Ms. Curitan, I want to make sure that I want to be clear that, like, council's document should be in council's room.
The location is not the concern. It's more
Okay.
so the
devices
The
that-
devices, correct.
Okay.
So, for example, if we have Company A, they've already got business
I
with the
gotcha.
city. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Do you have what you need, Ms. Chichester?
I think so. We're just going to bring the paper copies back. We're going to put them into the copies room, but pending the storage space availability, though, of what we're going to do, what we're going to put them in, I guess.
Okay.
Is that the clear understanding?
Yeah, the containers,
Yes.
for lack of a better word. Okay,
Containing, fireproof containers.
okay. So we'll definitely have more information by the time our next meeting comes around in April. We can kind of button this up and get it tightened up, and then if we need to, we can use our expense procedure and get us some cabinets. All right. Anything else about that before we move on? Some good discussion. Okay, so next, in the packet that I provided digitally I know you were not able to get to it. Did anyone else have trouble accessing that due to like password issues or anything accessing? Okay. I did bring paper copies just in case.
Thank you.
So they're on, if anyone needs it, there's extras on the corner of the table in the back of our whole packet so people can see what we're looking at. All right, so the next thing on the list of our agenda is a proposed potential resolution for public health initiatives for the community. This is an offshoot of some of the activity that's been going on, not only with We Thrive, but also with our Hamilton County Public Health population health specialists. I know that several months ago, the report came out. That was every 3 years they do an assessment, and our recent assessment came out. So this is an offshoot of that, this resolution. So it's adopting, and this, for everyone's benefit, this is draft. This is not anything remotely resembling actual legislation. But there is several kind of like, they are labeled as whereas, only to help identify it which section they belong to if we do decide to go ahead and move forward with this as a committee. So we met, and this is just a brain dump. This is not anything that is set in stone, but it kind of walks through. We had this community health assessment. We've identified several opportunities to improve community health and wellness. Promoting public health, environmental stewardship, sustainability, and aligning it with the comprehensive plan is another important element. And there is a section, whereas the last one that talks about health in all policies, that was referred to us by Hamilton County. It's a program that they've used, I believe, with other communities, and it provides essentially a framework for how this can be implemented locally, encouraging community involvement and providing, I said framework already, that's not the right word I'm searching for, but you get the idea. So what it is this, having this kind of a resolution, the importance of a resolution is when, like for example, on the back page, section 2, or section 3 rather, there's a part about identifying funding opportunities, grants, public-private partnerships. By proactively working toward getting this kind of legislation out there, that aids administration because it demonstrates public leadership support for these initiatives. So when it doesn't commit us to funding, but for example, when we went after the Nature Works grant as an example, they needed a resolution from council, but that was more specific to that project. But what this allows you to do is, let's say we have somebody who wants to partner with the city and provide ABC health initiative program. Doesn't cost us anything, but they need to know that we're on board, that we're cool with this, that we definitely want to improve public health. So that's what this helps us do. It helps build that case, that as a community, as a leadership team, as council, we are on board with pursuing things that help improve our local health. So that's what this is for, and it's a proactive process so that we can, that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is a lot of communities have success when they name these programs, and we call it the ABC brand name, essentially. So like Health on the Hill or something like that, right? And we have all these elements that go with it. And it helps us get it out in the community. It helps us communicate this to our friends and neighbors who live here, who work here, who learn here. And so promoting policies that improve physical, mental, and environmental health, encouraging active living, safe neighborhoods, access to healthy foods, sustainability practices, protecting natural resources, strengthening partnerships with organizations, schools, and businesses, and equitable access to opportunities that enhance quality of life. And if we call that a program, for example, Hamilton County's version is We Thrive. Mm-hmm. So that is their branded community health initiative, and allows them to use that to communicate effectively with partners, with communities, with resources that might be out there. So I wanted us to start taking a look at this. It's new. I don't know if we've done anything like this before. If we have, fantastic. But I would like us, and Ms. Chichester also was part of that conversation with our Hamilton County people. They strongly recommend this kind of route to help us formalize this as a community, that this is what we want to do. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing this forward. Just a couple of quick clarifying questions. I see it lists that there are pending grants and that this is time sensitive. Are these grant applications that are due, or grant funding that needed to be expended?
I need to reread what I wrote. Time sensitive due to pending grants. Yes. So there is at least one grant that we actually talked about briefly this morning, and I believe one, and it's through Hamilton County Public Health, and it was for, help me, the little pantries. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that grant we applied for, or the administration applied for, and we were conditionally awarded it. But what was part of that application was, do you have a statement from leadership or a policy or resolution to back up that our community, is on board with these kinds of health initiatives? That's one piece of it. So that's part of why that one's actually in flight right now. And it also helps strengthen things like our UC partnership. Again, this would demonstrate. So those things are in flight. And now if opportunities come up, then we can take advantage of them more quickly by having this. But yes, there are at least two projects right now that would benefit greatly from having this kind of legislation or this policy in place.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And then after,
She can-
then Ms. Zorb after you.
Sure. So just to ensure, you said it's called the Little Pantries Grant that has been awarded. Is there a dollar amount pending? I've never heard of a grant, either you're approved or you're declined, or denied, rather. So you said that it's pending being awarded. Can you clarify that? And then can you also clarify what the grant is for and the actual name?
I don't know if, do you want to speak to that? Because I know that's, the ball's in your court with the paperwork on that, so,
Madam Chair.
yes.
So we were awarded it, but sometimes when you're awarded a grant, you have follow-up documents that you have to provide. Some of those follow-up documents were due by close of business today, which we did submit. And then we have, once they review that and make sure that those things are kind of checking the boxes for what they want to see, then they'll go forward with what Ms. Clear is saying. So I just real briefly want to say, this is an excellent execution of legislation for council. I mean, that's what council's here to do, to preempt legislation that supports the movement of administration. I cannot tell you how many grants that we apply for that they ask, what's your city constituency and buy-in, and they're talking about council and legislation that supports this. So this is honestly an excellent way to kind of get ahead of these things, and we don't have to do these steps behind having gotten the grants, and they're already done. And a lot of cities do it ahead of time. So this is what council should be doing.
Okay. And just to quickly answer, it was a I would call it a micro grant, not even a mini grant. It was only $1,000. So it's essentially, I think the purpose was, sometimes you can repurpose like old newspaper stands, magazine stands, but they're going to need to be painted. They're going to need to be waterproofed, things like that. So we need supplies and materials, and also the installation of them. Now, what I will do, a caveat is, I don't believe we currently have an ordinance in place that governs how these things and where these things can be placed in the community. So that is something that would be another step, but that would be a separate issue from this. This is more like public support for a program or an initiative. That would be getting into the specifics of how far back from the street can they be? How tall can they be? Do they have to be walkable? Those kinds of things. But we need to actually legislate that if we do not already have something on the books.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
did,
Can I get in?
I didn't hear
Oh, I'm
it.
sorry.
I'm
She's
sorry.
been waiting. I forgot. Thank you.
Sorry. So a couple things, because now the more other people talk, the longer my list got. So this is, I'm going to use my terminology. Is this almost like a generic baseline just to kind of set the tone for the city?
Correct.
Okay. Good, because the more I was reading this, I was like, where's the beef? Like, because we're talking about food. So I couldn't figure out what we were really doing here. So thank you for that clarification.
It's framed as a resolution. It would be a resolution. So it's an expression of our opinion
Okay.
on these things, is how that would go.
And
It's not specifically, you're allowed to apply for a matching grant and not come to council. That's not what this is. This is generally just expressing council's support for these types of initiatives in our community.
Okay, and then I heard you talking about placement of the little pantries. I believe that would fall into code, like we'd have to have a zoning code for that.
Unless we already have one, and that's,
Right.
We
and
do.
that would just be my ignorance of the process so far.
We
Okay.
do.
We do.
I looked it up today.
All right, that saves us a step.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Ducey, do you know the code number on there, so I could just document it for the notes?
I don't know the code.
If
number.
you, whenever you, just let me know, so I could put it in our notes.
All right, and I think, Mayor, were you next?
I
Okay.
didn't hear if Ms. Dukestein said the name of the grant,
Oh,
but I know what it is, so I was.
Go ahead, you can say it.
It's the Hamilton County Public Health, and it's the Chronic Disease Prevention Mini Grant.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so the next step with this if this committee is generally aligned, I know we don't vote, but this also involves community development. So I didn't know if you wanted to discuss this also in that committee, just to kind of get a well-rounded viewpoint on, not just these four of us, but then the other committee maybe comes from a different perspective and might be able to have some insight as well. I think that would be fine, to do that as well, in the community, and that they meet at the end of the month, so that works out. That still gives us time to get it on the floor and get some readings in. So, yeah.
Madam
Right.
Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
When you were asking about that, were you asking about the piece of legislation being in CCDR, or were you asking about the grant being in?
This policy and legislation, yeah. In case there's anything that they say, oh, why don't we add this bullet here, just to kind of round it out a little more. I can't think of everything. So, that's, this is why we have a team, so we can work through it and get the details in here that we need to have. So, okay?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just looking at the calendar, because I know in April, is it April 6th?
No, it's the second meeting. Oh, that's right. We do have the second meeting. This is news to everybody, so they're going to be lost. You and I are the only ones who know about this from the other meeting.
I just wanted to make sure that everything's in
Yeah.
place for that time frame, so.
Yeah. And that's okay. This is ordinarily we could go through 3 readings, or we could just decide to suspend readings if we're ready to move forward.
Okay.
But I don't anticipate it if we need another. If I do really want the other committee to also review it, which
that's
means
fine.
the first feasible time it could be on the floor for council consideration would be in April.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. I do have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk me through your thought process for having the emergency clause on it? On section 5?
Just so we don't have to wait to move forward with it. I mean, we can do an effective date as effective as of, or we can just say effective immediately. It's a placeholder text, and that's exactly something that I would hope that somebody could catch, because like I said, this was brain dump. And so we can do effective date, or we can do emergency clause verbiage there, however we want to move forward with how we want to phrase that.
Madam Chair?
I guess
Yes.
I was just trying to understand what the emergency was to justify having emergency clause on it.
Got it. Yeah.
Sorry,
Well,
Ms. Chichester, I mean,
Madam
it's,
Chair.
So-
No,
Chichester?
you're fine. I was just saying, I think we should do it in effective date.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that better than an emergency clause.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just food for thought. So when you get the grants, the emergency just means that if in context to this particular piece of legislation, when you are applying, if they see that, they're saying, oh, this community, this city is eager to get actionable on this project, on these types of projects, when we're applying for dollars, it doesn't do anything beyond that. If there is a grant requirement where we would have to have legislation to receive it, would that be a completely different thing? This just says we're eager to apply to meet the expectations of this grant, because some of the grants require legislation like this to even apply.
So, would it
Madam
help?
Chair?
But I thought this
Sorry.
was just a baseline and not necessarily for any specific grant, so that's why
It is a baseline. However, if that is built in there, if the grant wants to see the zealousness of a council group that supports the city dollars going in health and wellness or whatever, that looks really well in a piece of document or in a
Madam
piece of
Chair.
legislation.
I think Ms. Chichester and then Ms. Curitan.
She answered my question. My question was going to be, would it benefit us for the grant to keep it in there, since they're looking for additional documentation? Is that they're looking for this resolution, so,
It doesn't hurt anything, and it does benefit.
okay.
So yes, it does benefit, and it does not hinder or inhibit any
But it
council
shows that
process
we're
or evade
serious.
any council process.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Ms. Dukestein, are there any grants right now that you've applied for that align with this beyond the micro grant?
The UC Health grant,
Beyond, well, that was from 2025. Anything from 2026?
the UC Health grant was 2026.
Okay. So the micro grant, UC grant, is there anything else that's funneling down? 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm-
the Metro grants, some of the grants, like we met with the BWC, we met on that one today. That is the body cameras for the police. Some of those would be interested in having a piece of document like piece of legislation like this, so that they can know that we are fully invested.
Got it. Are you saying that that piece of document, because it has the emergency clause, the wording?
No, I'm saying the document itself. So if you look at council process and the things that council would have to be included in on any of these grants and receiving the grant dollars, having the emergency clause only helps us, but it does not prohibit or give permission to administration in any way to go outside of the regular process. Those grants are very specific to what is required and needed, even in terms of needing legislation to receive the dollars. So I just wanted to kind of support the idea that the emergency clause can only help, but it does not hinder council and council having a hands-on or, just insight into visibility in any way.
Sure. Madam Chair, I would actually disagree with you on that slightly. I think the substance of the grant, who writes the grants, and providing them with all of the information that they need would weigh significantly heavier than one piece of legislation that has an emergency clause, because they want to see how long it's going to be sustainable in that city. So anyone can write legislation, throw the word emergency on there, but is that something that proves to them that if I were to give North College Hill 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, will they be able over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years to sustain these dollars on the project they're intended for? So I would love to see us applying for grants, not necessarily because they have, or more so with this piece of legislation because it has an emergency clause, but more so making sure that we are applying in a good qualifying and quantifying way for every grant, so that we can ensure when it's submitted through, North College Hill stands out, not because it has legislation with an emergency clause, but because the grant was written appropriately.
Madam
I-
Chair,
I just want to, if I
go ahead.
address, so the grants are one piece of it. It also, it's just a statement of public support. It is a statement of support. And having that in there communicates that we, as a governing body, feel a sense of urgency with this issue, and we want it to be in place. And I think what helps to address your point is this: are we in it for the long haul? Section 2 helps with that. If we formalize this as a program, then that really helps to solidify and lend a sense of this isn't going to go away anytime soon. You know, we're invested, and so much so that we've named it, and we want to keep this going because we know it's a benefit for the community. So I think the emergency clause aids us in that sense because it does communicate a sense of urgency on the part of the leadership of the city that we need to address this. So
What are we naming it?
Miss-
I don't know. I had a whole list of ideas, and I didn't bring them to this meeting because I figured the main thing right now is let's agree in principle, and then we can dive into more specifics later on, or soon, of course, but not, just getting this out here as a step one, I think is a huge step forward. So, Ms. Chicha, who was next?
Ms. Dukestein,
Ms.
then me.
Dukestein, and then you. Yes.
I was just gonna say, in full support of what you're expressing, Ms. Clear, mainly because if Ms. Clear knows this as well, because she applies for grants and she can have some insight, but it's grant culture to do something like this. So it's not abnormal, and this actually yields to some more support dollars as opposed to us individualizing ourselves. That's not the spirit behind it. It's just to say that we have support. So it's just a part of grant culture they like to see.
Ms. Chichester?
My question was for you, Ms. Clear. My understanding is that this resolution was recommended by the We Thrive Public Health Committee so that it would help us and aid us in getting the grant.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, so I just wanted to
So yes, there's some
put
things
that
in
out there,
flight, and then
that why
there's,
we did
yeah.
the things we did, because it was recommended for us.
right. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Because I do want to make sure we have time for our
Absolutely.
other priority one on the list here.
Gotta turn the page.
Okay, so next steps with this is I'm going to forward it to, and that doesn't preclude us from having a first reading, by the way, just if another committee is going to look at it. So we could still do the first reading and then also have the committee look at it. It's not an either or. So if we wanted to do that as well. So, and then in the next
Sending it
council
to
meeting.
To the law director then?
Yes, we will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To go on the template, because this is not a template. Okay, wonderful. So that is my takeaway. I will get this. I'm making a little note for myself so I don't forget.
I did.
Okay. All right.
Next.
So, third thing on the agenda, the city administrator's report. Now, I did receive the draft language that Ms. Curitan had worked on. I don't know if it is an official resolution number yet. I don't know. If this one hits the floor before that one, then this one would be 3, and that's why we don't number them ahead of time. But so if you want to speak to this, because this was something that you are proposing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So since joining council in 2026, council has received 2 city administrator reports. It is also my understanding that there were no reports at all given to council from the city administrator in 2025. Subsequently, the 2 reports that were given, there were substantial questions that followed them. Some answered, some remain unanswered. Looking back at former city administrator reports, I have come up with a recommendation that I would love council's impact and feedback on. One thing that I would love to do in the administrative reports is to get enough information that it allows us, to chew on it and to really have eyes and ears of what's happening in the city without actually being present. Some of the things that I would love to see highlighted are more qualitative and quantitative graphs that talk about the work of code enforcement, that talks about the work of our public works, that talks about the work of our police and fire, not just 2 or 3 statements that has told me about their month. And so subsequently, I've created this resolution. It is not abnormal for a council to have a report. Some of the former reports are on our city's website from the former city administrators. And without just myself asking, because I have received, honestly, some pushback, some feedback. So I would like to bring this to council to get some feedback on what we would like to see in that report. Ultimately, I would love for it to just be what it's been in the past with the former city administrators.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Curitan, so I read through this draft, and some of the things that are in this draft are verbatim from the city charter. So I guess I might ask, why would we need a piece of legislation that mirrors the charter?
Absolutely.
That's my first question. My second question is, and then I have a comment. What are you looking for as far as a graph for public works? My comment is every report may or may not have a graph from every department. Some of the asks are reasonable. I'm not saying that they are unreasonable, but key accomplishments and challenges and pending decisions, I don't think that that's something that should be in every report. Because you're asking for administration to bring to you, okay, there's a pending decision. Everything is not at that particular time to be discussed.
Madam
So,
Chair.
just so that I'm clear, so that I understand and have clarity about
Okay.
what's being asked. Not to say that council will even approve everything in here, but just for clarification.
Okay, so I heard a couple of names, but I'm trying to find which section we're talking about where it says the charts and graphs. That's,
Oh, it's in there, I can't remember, but I did read
yeah,
it.
Madam
I believe
Chair.
it's on the back.
yes.
So a couple of things. It is not abnormal for an administrator's report for the city as the CFO and CEO and wearing many hats to provide qualitative and quantitative stats. If you look back at the former city administrator's report from 2017, it has some substantial information that can guide the directives of what we're looking for, or what I recommend that we have. I didn't just pull this out my hat, but I'm looking back
I'm not saying
at
you did.
historically. Okay, I'm looking back historically, and if you also look at administrative reports from prior cities, the concern of why I brought this forward was because I did ask for additional information, and I did receive some pushback. So subsequently, I would like to have a uniformed process in place so that council can best serve the constituents of the city. I'll give you an example. In the 2017 report, and I'm not even sure who was administrator then.
Oh, it's Cheryl Long.
Okay, great. Cheryl Long. In this report, on the 7th page, nope, on the 4th page, she gives us some stats that talks about burglaries and sexual assaults. And it shows an increase and it also shows a decline. It says in 2012, we had a lot of burglaries, but in 2017, it decreased. So this gives me a better viewpoint of when the police department gives the numbers to the administration. Say, oh, well, yeah, that's a 5-year decline. The percentages maybe are not there, but yeah, that helps me get a better understanding. It also tells me that in 2012, we had minimum sexual assaults, but then we saw a spike in 14, 15, 16. So what happened in 14, 15, 16? But then significantly in 2017, we saw a major decline. So what did our police department do good, effectively, that worked between 16 and 17? I believe just giving me a couple of 3 or 4 sentences and some words doesn't really give me an idea of what we're doing. And so
Madam
that's why I would
Chair.
like to have this in place. Additionally, I would also recommend that it almost acts as if in the administrative report you will see, and I'm assuming you've seen this report, it tells us about the code enforcement. It gives us the addresses. It gives us the problem so that we can know he's already on it or she's already taking care of that. So we're not duplicating efforts. It could be Mary Jo, it could be Kathy, it could be Annalisa coming to administration with the same problem if we have some kind of opportunity to look and see. And if a citizen comes to us and say, hey, Ms. Curitan, I see something on Galbraith Road, which they have, it allows me to say, hey, our code enforcement's already on it. So that's
Madam
the
Chair.
goal.
Madam Chair, I'm Madam Chair.
You are the Madam Chair.
A long time
It's been
ago.
a long day.
A long time ago.
But I just want to remind our committee, we got 5 minutes left between now and the end of this. I don't know if we're going to be able to wrap this up tonight. Is it acceptable to revisit this at the next policy meeting and we can kind of give it a
Certainly.
deeper dive?
Certainly.
Okay.
And honestly, Madam Chair, I would love, again, I brought this resolution solely because of some of the pushback received. I would love to just know that we really wouldn't need resolution, But in order for council to effectively serve the constituents of the city and whom we were elected to serve, I just believe that the reports that we've received so far, they're okay, but I think that we can do a little bit better with the information, and I don't honestly think we have to reinvent the wheel. Let's just look at some of the reports from prior city administrators,
Madam
and let's
Chair.
just look at ways that we can improve it.
Mayor Nichols?
Okay, so to that, we should keep in mind that each administration or administrator is different. So the way one produces a document is not the same way another person would produce the document. Another thing that I found, and I know we're going to revisit this, is that you're asking in this documentation for administration to bring information that you've already asked from when council or whomever requests that Public Works, Police, Fire come. They are coming to present that information, but then we have to reiterate it through a document through administration. So we're asking, and sometimes it's not as quick as popcorn. I know it's at the beginning of the month and you want the report at the end, but sometimes some of the questions take longer. It takes longer to dig and to look into it, but we can revisit it later. I just wanted to.
And Ms. Chichester?
Since we're going to put it, I can wait so we can further expand on the discussion.
Okay, thank you. So we've got 2 minutes and change left here. So I did want to notify the committee, administration, and whoever's watching. Previously, we had code enforcement ingress egress in this committee. It's going to now be discussed in public safety instead of this committee. This was not necessarily a referral or an assignment. These were things that we were trying to get on these agendas so that we don't lose track of it. But that is no longer going to be a topic specifically that this committee will address. It will go to public safety. So, and there's that. And then also, if any of the other members of the committee have looked at the agenda, and then if there's things that you feel need to be bumped to a high priority, let me know, and we'll put it, make sure we address it first or in the first set of things we discuss next time. And speaking of next time, I will be out of town at our next meeting on April 13, and I rather presumptuously assumed that our vice chair could handle the meeting, and I just want to confirm that that's the case, that you would run the meeting in my absence.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anything else before we adjourn?
Madam Chair, I have
Yes.
a quick one. So I know you're talking about the agenda, so will things like just kind of file up
Yes,
when they
that's
get
the
checked off?
idea.
Okay.
And then things like that require a deeper dive, like what we did today, we can get that done. And then it leaves room for further discussion on other things that also need a deep dive that might come down later. And hopefully the idea is that we won't have as much of a backlog, moving forward, because we're going to be able to address these things more thoroughly and more quickly in our meeting time.
I have a really quick question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Parking lot, is yes or no? Is it this parking lot out here?
No, I'm sorry. Parking lot, thank you. I should clarify. It is, these are the topics that we don't want to lose track of,
Okay.
but they're not in any way time sensitive or urgent. We just don't want them to drop off the radar screen.
Okay.
That's what that is. And I should clarify that in the notes.
Hanging
Thank
out
you.
in the parking lot. Yep.
Virtual parking lot.
It's a virtual parking lot. Yeah. All right. Well, it is 7:00 and we will go ahead and adjourn Rules and Public Policy. Thank you, everyone.
Our public safety meeting today is Monday, March 9th, and the committee is here. We are missing one committee member, and that is Mr. Davis. Has anyone heard from Mr. Davis? Okay, all right. And we are also not going to accept and approve the meeting minutes from 2/9. I believe that there needs to be a couple of redactions and modifications to those notes as well. So first up, and I want to thank our administrator and our mayor for being present this evening. I do appreciate. We're going to do a little bit of a switcheroo, a little bit on this agenda. And I want to first talk about the safety highlights from the February City Administrator Report. Ms. Dukestein, can you maybe just give us a little bit? I know we have not, we received it, but we've not had a chance to walk through it and talk through it. So can you just maybe give us an overview, a highlight of the public safety for the report?
I'm unclear on what you are wanting.
Okay, so in your 2026 February Public Safety Committee report, you've given some statements regarding police, fire, and code. I see that you have code enforcement issued notices of violations. There's not a number there. How many were issued? Do you know?
I sent that to you in a subsequent document, but there were,
In that document that you sent, it didn't have that number.
you're saying that the document didn't have the number of violations given?
That was for a short period of time. It wasn't for the entire month. But we can revisit, not a problem. So
I'm not saying that let me look up what I sent you.
also regarding the public safety in the report, I wanted to maybe get an understanding of maybe some of the calls that our police department, do you have like a total number of calls that they had for the entire month? If there's anything that we can do to better support them, if there are any additional grants. I know that you mentioned that they were applying for the body camera grant. I believe even Chief Cheney shared that with me, and that's really, really big for the city. Is there anything else? Maybe I should ask it this way. Beyond what we have here, is there anything else that you believe council should know from a public safety standpoint regarding police, fire, and code?
So it says the code enforcement activity for the month of January was 34 cases opened, 14 cases closed, 20 cases remain open. The due process for abatement is not up yet. And I explained to you in an email, not only did I send you this document, I also explained to you in an email that grass and what is the other one? Grass and I can't think of it right now.
No problem.
But the so the businesses have 30 days. The commercial properties have 30 days to remediate their. So that's maintenance, any level of maintenance, like say for instance a gutter was down or a window is cracked. When they get a notice of violation, that gives a timestamp of when 30 days from that day to remediate that problem, and then we come back around, meaning code enforcement officer circles back around to look at that to determine whether or not they go further in the enforcing process. So I did send this document to you. I also explained the document. In fact, I remember you responding back saying thank you for the explanation differing between the grass and the property maintenance portion of it. So that was the report that was attached for January. So as you are, and I don't want to get off into the as city administrator's report, but you're receiving these reports on a monthly basis from each one of the departments. So you have that specific.
Ms. Dukestein, I'm so sorry. That is actually incorrect. I just want to clarify that a couple of things. One, I did mention February and you mentioned January. I don't want to get off into the semantics. The one report that I did receive was requested for code enforcement. However, the report did not give me the information that I'm asking you for now. What I asked for this evening was February, the number of code violations. So what I'm looking for is, I would understand that if we're now in March, February would now be closed. And when you provided the information in February for January, that was when January was closed. So if you want, we can pull up that report. All of this committee has a copy of that report. And in the report for code, it does say a number of cases open as being 34, a number of cases closed as being 14, a number of unresolved 20, but then complaint type just simply says property maintenance. And I understand that there are
So
variable.
what he's saying
I'm sorry, Ms.
is-
Dukestein, one moment, please. And I understand there are different types of cases that our code enforcement has. So what I'm looking for on public safety is when a citizen says, hey, Ms. Carrollton, I see that there is trash, or hey, Ms. Carrollton, I see there is maintenance, or excuse me, a mattress, or hey, Ms. Carrollton, I see there's an entire furniture living room set on the curb. I don't know if they all fall under the category of being solely property maintenance. There has to be, and then if it's at a business versus at a residence. So what I'm looking for is a better understanding of some of these violations and the applicable complaint type.
I also sent that to you. It's in the portion of the next document. Says the case life cycle of overview for property maintenance violations. And then it talks about so if you read the entire document, it has each category, and it has the complaint intake, the inspection, the notice of violation, and what happens. It's for grass, it's for trash, and then it is for property maintenance. So anything where you have just for further explanation, where there's grass or something about the yard needs to be taken care of, we categorize that as grass. And then there is trash, which is anything like litter, a mattress or a couch in the front yard or something like that. If it's a residential area, that falls into the category of trash. Some people even just dumping things in their backyard. And then the property maintenance, that would be like if there was a gutter or something blighted about the property that needs to be repaired. And so there's two tracks. There's residential and then there is commercial. Commercial requires 30 days per our internal laws and ordinance and our codes, I'm sorry. And then the trash and grass are 5 days.
Thank you so much,
So
Ms.
that is,
Dixon.
if you've taken all of the documents sent to you, that's there.
Yeah. So again, we're talking about the January report because that's been the report that I've received for code. I see at the top it says nature of violations recorded. So if a citizen comes to me and say, hey, Ms. Carrollton, this is a safety violation for my children. They can't play in the front yard because there is an entire king-size mattress at the curb. I want to understand, are we allowing, if this particular mattress doesn't have a home, so to speak, we don't know where it came from, do we still cite someone, or how do we address that?
You cannot cite someone where there is not, you don't know
Yeah,
who
ownership,
dumped that
sure.
there. So
Sure.
with those types of circumstances, that would not fit under this umbrella of information.
So that's the kind of information that I'm looking for. Where does it fit?
That information is once somebody puts in a notice into the website or the portal, then we ask our Public Works, or Public Works is immediately copied, and they go out and remediate that immediately.
Okay. Is there a process in place to avoid those types of situations? So maybe what I'm asking is, how can we proactively, because when I looked at it, it actually had snow on it, and I don't know if it was snow from the last storm or the recent storm. I wasn't sure, but it had snow on it. So is there a process in place so citizens can know their kids can play safely in the community without having to trip over a king-size mattress on the curb?
So we have, as a part of our Rumpke contract, we've worked in a where you can put out big ticket items, but a lot of times, I don't know if it's just not unknown to the community. The newsletter hasn't been dispersed yet, but one of the things that we talk about in there is the parameters in which you need to be able to put out a larger item. A mattress or a sofa or anything with cloth on it has to be wrapped in plastic. And so if it's not wrapped appropriately or at the right garbage spot, then Rumpke does not pick it up. So that would be the most proactive thing that we could do, just allowing citizens and educating them on how they can dispose of their bigger items appropriately. Now, someone that just wants or has a heart and mind to dump, I don't know that there is something that we could do.
Got it. Okay, good. I love the fact that we have something in place that is proactive, but I am concerned that as it gets warmer, and it was very startling that there were two issues. One, actually, the street that I presented to you all, they said the furniture had been on the curb for an extended period of time. I'm glad to see now that it is gone, and I'm also glad to see that that mattress is gone. Ultimately, as it gets warmer outside and more families are outdoors, we're looking at ways that we can beautify our community but also make it safer. In fact, there was a citizen who reached out regarding our next topic, and that is the safety speed bumps, the speeding in North College Hill. We briefly began to talk about the report that was done by JMA.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. I had one question about
Sure.
the previous topic before we leave it.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
So I know that you mentioned that the large item pickup that Rumpke takes, if it's wrapped properly and prepared to be picked up, who picks up the unwrapped items? The reason Rumpke, I know why Rumpke doesn't do it, because first of all, it's gross. Nobody wants to go home with bed bugs. But so who picks up these unwrapped items that are left that are basically junk that's been dumped?
So transparently, our public works department picks that up. The reason I don't put that in a document or put that out or say that publicly, because there are people who actually have a heart to dump. And when you say that and they don't have to do it the right way, then you give a loophole publicly at how people can do it without actually doing it the right way. And so that's not, sometimes you have to consider what you're giving. Not everyone has an earnest heart to get rid of trash. If you look at our Rumpke contract, which we explored, one of the things that we noticed is there was an uptick in dumping garbage for our 3 and 4 family units, which their price went way up. And that is primarily because people are less than honest and they're dumping in those areas. And so those communities are having to absorb the cost of that, where single family homes, or some of them are the guilty parties of having done that. So that's when I'm kind of protective of how I release certain information, because of the outcome of what that means for those that have a dishonest heart at wanting to remediate or not see our community clean. And so we also, I did not mention this, one of the other preventive things that we've done and we did last year, we will do this year, is cleanup days.
Thank you so much for that information. Thank
Madam
you for
Chair.
that question. I think also to that same point, though, when you provide this information to council, it's not just sending it to the public, as you mentioned, not wanting to get that information out. In order for council to kind of have the information that Ms. Clear just asked, it allows us to forecast any changes that we want to see, even legislatively, for the city, for the betterment of this city. And so if we can, as a caveat, look at, maybe some contentious topics and not look at it as I'm getting it out to the public, but more so look at it as a way I'm sharing vital information with council. So council can then legislatively, again, look at better ways to serve the city. Go ahead, Mayor Nichols.
I think it's irrelevant. That's okay.
All right, great. All right, so I wanted to just, anyone had any questions on that topic? Okay, great. I wanted to segue onto the speeding in North College Hill. We all know about it. We've all heard about it. And it's a big problem. In fact, one of the constituents made a post today, and she has given me permission to read it out loud. Give me just 1 second. And while I'm pulling up this report so that we can be more conscientious of our time, Ms. Dukestein, can you tell us your findings from 2 reports? One that JMA, and it wasn't under your administration, but the report that was done by JMA, and then I think subsequently, Mr. Huffman, who was the former Public Works Director, what his findings were when he actually did, and I'm going to call it a rope. I don't think it's a rope, but someone can correct me on the correct terminology. He placed something along the streets in North College Hill in 2024 to determine variable speed. So what's your understanding regarding the speed bumps, safety, and things that are in the works from administration for the safety of North College Hill?
So I think, as discussed at this last public safety meeting, the machine that they're putting out for that Mr. Huffman used to move in, I'm not going to say Mr. Huffman, Public Works used to move that piece of equipment around the city to measure how many cars were going at a certain speed. And Cheney was interim chief Cheney was here at that meeting, and he had discussed that he was going to see what it took to start putting it back out.
Okay.
There, in extreme weather conditions, we would not want to put it out. So we will be putting it back out. The other thing is, I think Miss Alexander had talked about, like, on her street, helping us to know where to identify where to put it, because she said that by the time where she had seen it, by the time cars drove over it, they were either slowing down or it wasn't where the excessive speeds were. So I think we're looking into that to place it. The findings per the past when it had been put out is there were a couple of stragglers that were going like 35, in excess of 35 miles per hour, but nothing like outrageous, which is why Miss Alexander suggested that we look into some key spots at where to put it. As for the speed humps, we had talked about making sure that we get the reports, and before we place them, speed humps can be extremely harmful to our pavement on our streets. And we want to make sure that if we're going to place speed humps, that they are going to be in spaces where we actually have speeding issues.
Sure.
And so there's work per some grant funding, some things. I think Ms. Clear suggested some things that she knew. She was, I don't know if she was sitting in the audience, but I just remember her suggesting that we go through those channels in order to just get an assessment of where we would want to potentially put speed humps, but that requires getting data.
Sure.
And so
Madam-
we're in that space.
Madam Chair?
One moment, Ms. Clear. So I do recall when Ms. Underwood sat on council, I heard her talk about the speeding in her sector. I also heard Ms. Alexander mention it. And I want to read to you what a constituent wrote with her permission. She said, yesterday my neighbor was doing something with his car on the street. A car came speeding per usual and came within inches of hitting him. This is becoming a real problem with the cars speeding down my street, especially since Dunkin' Donuts has opened. No shade to Dunkin' Donuts at all. And now we have children living on the street. My fear is one of those children running out in the street and them not being able to stop in time because the cars are driving so fast. The street in question is Goodman Avenue. Even the Board of Education is here on Goodman Avenue. She also goes on to say, I've seen speed bumps on other streets out here, which is going to be a question, where are those speed bumps at, and if we've moved those. But why are they not on her street, a very high trafficking street? She also says a well-traveled street that is a main thoroughfare many use to avoid traffic on Hamilton and Galbraith. And maybe the speed bumps will teach them how to yield and stop knocking folks' side mirrors off of their cars, signed a concerned citizen.
Okay.
So we have a couple of examples. I'll let you go in just a second, Ms. Clear. We have a couple of examples from one former council member, one current council member, and a constituent. I'm not sure how much data we need to say, yep, we really got to do something, especially with North College Hill being a walking distance. Go ahead, Ms. Clear.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know there's a lot of talk about speed bumps in particular, but there are other methods of slowing traffic that don't involve speed bumps. A lot of them are, in fact, I want to say at least half a dozen different ideas. Not all of them are appropriate for our environment, but in that report that we received, there's a bunch of different things, and part of the grant that you were speaking to would allow us to test certain configurations like bump outs, like putting planters on the curbs to visually reduce the roadway, at least visually to the driver, which naturally makes people slow down. And it might also, who knows, it might solve the mirror problem because now the road looks more narrow. But there's other means that perhaps we could explore. And you can get the temporary paint stripes, so we don't have to commit to permanent paint if we want to try something that involves lane shifts or things like that. And that's part of what that grant would have helped, to get those kinds of temporary pop-up supplies. And Hamilton County Public Health, at the time that they offered that grant to us, they are actually perfectly willing to collect public opinion data on the testing of those pop-up demonstrations. That is something that they do. They can put the yard signs out with the QR code so the public can right away give their opinion on what do you think about the curb bump out, what do you think of what we're trying here. They can help it. That's a resource that we have to help us collect at least public opinion data once we start testing those things, if we start testing those things. So the reason I think people think about speed bumps first is because that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? But there's other things like Mount Healthy, I know, tested, some curb bump outs. And I believe Laughlin was another community that received that same grant, and they did some like for the kids where they walk. They've done some things to the crosswalks to make them more visible. But again, to expand on what you said, there's ways we can test out these things that would not involve speed bumps.
Madam Chair.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I do agree with you. I actually have a couple. I don't know if the city has cameras, but if there's even a grant that the city can apply for speed cameras that can attract that. And I also think that it would be helpful. I don't want to ask any additional work because our police officers are definitely overextended and working long hours. But I've seen them positioned in certain areas coming between College Hill and North College Hill. And so I'm wondering if we can partner with our police department to maybe have some visibility in some areas. If you start hitting people in their pockets, I understand that our city does have the radar detectors that the officers can utilize. I don't know how many. Do you know, Ms. Dukestein, the number of radar detectors the city has? Because I don't know if we can place an officer in each quadrant for a few hours or whatever capacity that our department has to really see, what's going on out here and to really get an idea. And sometimes if you start hitting the people who are impacted in their pockets, that may cause them to slow down before anything else. Go ahead, Mayor Nichols.
I just want to make a couple of comments. I do know that Interim Chief Cheney was part of the project with Mr. Huffman, and I believe he gave a report that said the average speed limit was 35, 40 miles per hour. Now, I don't know where he clocked that, but then I do recall Mrs. Alexander saying, no, that couldn't be right. I am one for speed bumps, but we cannot have the type that we have now. If that's what, if that's where we're going, because those, I've seen them broken up everywhere.
Sure.
They're even on the school property broken up. Location is key because there's one on Clover Knoll. You can fly down one section of Clover Knoll, go through the stop sign, and there's a speed hump in the middle. Part of it's broken, and when it's broken, I've seen cars just go around, not even utilized if a car isn't parked there. So in my opinion, I think these things are expensive. I know you all drive other places outside of the city of Cincinnati. I've had some conversations with Cincinnati to get their pricing, and we're talking 50 and up for one. And these are the rubber ones. I know Mount Healthy has some down on Adams.
Madam Chair.
Too. And additionally, just one more thing. I was thinking the concrete ones that go, clear across. I hear that those are pretty expensive as well. I mean, you can plop them on any street, every street, and I've seen people fly over everything. And to our police officers, I have seen them out more. Matter of fact, in the past 2 weeks, I've seen them like pull over like 4 different
Good.
folks. So
Good.
they're out. I know they're out, especially on Hamilton.
Good.
Madam
So,
Chair.
So to the point, I know that they're on Hamilton. I see them, but what we're talking about side streets like Goodman
I
and
know.
Center Ridge and other areas, especially
Oh,
since.
you're talking about the police.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because we were a walking district, I believe it was last year, and you can correct me or someone here can correct me, where there was actually an NCH student that was hit by a vehicle, right? And I believe that Dr. Blaylock and Chief Cheney were trying to work together to get some grants or some funding that will allow North College Hill to actually have people with vests on that are identifiable. There was even an incident in the earlier or latter part of 2025 where someone like zoomed past the corner and almost hit a kid at Parrish right across the street from the high school. So you really can't put a cost, whether it's 500,000, 50,000, you really can't put a cost on a life, right?
No,
And
you
also,
can't.
yeah. And
I hope you don't think that I was.
Oh, no, no, I don't think that. But also I realize that there are grant opportunities that might be available as well, which kind of goes back to our
Safe
prior
routes to
conversation.
school was one of them.
Exactly, yeah. So if, Ms. Dukestein, are you able to do two things? One, to look at different options, whether it is raised crosswalks, raised bump outs, or even the rubbery speed bumps, or even I think there was an additional option. And with Chief Cheney, as they are the police department for our city, is there a way we can have that conversation? I would hate to have to wait until April. I would love for the city to be able to have something for our kiddos by August, which means that we would need to come together a little bit swifter for funding for what Chief Cheney and Dr. Blaylock would think would be best for our city. Is that something, an option that you have on your table, or is that something you're already working on?
So it is something that we're already working on. We're trying to pursue safe routes, which is a partnership between the city and the school. So I don't want to discount something that you said. You said, how much data do we need? We need significant data because we have a civil engineering are on some of these spaces where they're collecting data. You can't just put, I know that it seems like, hey, there's a lot of speeding on this street, let me just put a speed bump here. That's not exactly how it works. No matter how many citizens want that, you have to look at what that's going to cause in terms of traffic patterns, and where you may be eliminating speeding here, you're creating another problem that's vitally more dangerous someplace else. So we do absolutely need data. The civic engineer and designs for public roadways is something we want to rely on to make sure that when we are placing those speed bumps, I know that you have been emailing Interim Chief Cheney about a ride-along. I know that when I have looked out with the police department, and I'm not saying that we don't have a speeding issue, because I have seen it on my street as well. But there are like things that we can do, like you said, maybe raise crosswalks or the bump outs. Also, I've seen in certain communities like the hazard signs where there are children and they're just they're in fluorescent. You shaking your head no, saying.
Madam Chair.
But
Sure.
But what I would so I'll let you go.
The school district, the signs had purchased some of those at the top of Grace and Galbraith, and Public Works put them up for them multiple times because people went through them, knocked them over, and so I don't know that those will work.
Madam
So
Chair.
let's-
I'm not saying that those work. What I'm saying is that is another suggestion to not actually putting down speed humps. You can't just put down a speed hump because you want it there. You have to consult a civil engineer.
So,
Chair.
and I do recognize you, Ms. Alexander and Ms. Zorb. When I said that how much data do we need, we have the entire report that cost the city, I presume, a substantial number of dollars when JMA did it in 2020. And then we also have the work Mr. Huffman did. So what I'm saying is that if we're going to redo the work that was already done, how much data do we need? Now, if we're going to do something new, innovative, and different, I'm all for that. But if we're just going to repeat the same type of reporting that was already done, that here we are 6 years later from the first GMA report. And I also believe there were reports done before that. So let's have a parking lot for this topic. Let's actually pull, I would love to pull our superintendent, our police chief. I understand, Ms. Zorb, I got you, but I want to also leave something with Ms. Dukestein. I would love to pull our superintendent because he sees it, he hears about it all the time, probably at a greater level than you or I would. And I would also like to pull our interim police chief, and let's just get, they would have a lot more in-depth knowledge of this topic from my perspective beyond what you and I would. Go ahead, Ms. Zorb.
I think Ms. Alexander was before me.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Alexander.
So with the report, it seems, and I'm not an expert, but it seems like the streets that get this, it has to be an accident for this to happen. It has to be reactive instead of proactive. From prior meetings that we were sat in, and Chief Cheney and other people have explained the report, when they do these studies, the ones that get the actual like speed bumps or stop signs, it has to have had some type of accident or something like that. And I don't think that's right. And number two, 35 miles per hour is fast. My street is 25 miles per hour. 10 miles over in a residential area, I mean, that's impactful, because I know, I've been in a fender bender before, and they ask you, well, how fast were you going? And you may say, hey, I was only going 10 miles per hour. Oh, but you done $2,000 worth of damage to a car. So, like I said, when he said 35 miles per hour, that's not that much. When it's a 25 mile per hour zone in a residential area, and a kid or anybody could, be affected or hit, that's major. That's not a small, I hate to even say like 5 miles per hour over. That's 10 miles per hour over. That's impactful to me, especially when you got an area, my street is mostly elderly. They can't move as fast, to get out the way.
Yes, but the way that you're interpreting the data, so that's why I think it's important to understand the prompting for putting the speed bumps has not been accidents. It has been data. And I agree that 35 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour residential street is very fast. It definitely can make the difference between someone getting injured and someone getting slightly hurt. That's a kid that darts out into the street. However, when we were looking at the data, we're not going to do the same data that we did, but like to your suggestion, we would move it, because you're saying, hey, they're not speeding right there. So what we were measuring right there, the results were showing that less than a very small percentage was even registering in that 35 miles per hour range. So we wouldn't put a speed bump right there, because the data that we're collecting doesn't reflect that there is a problem there. So it's not accidents. It is the data that prompts speed humps or any kind of remediative slowing down of the city. However, we have to zone into where that requires data. And so if we're getting those speeds in the JMA report and the reports that were inspired by the equipment that Public Works were placing around the city, the police department was collecting that information and making a decision about how they implemented the ability to remediate the speed. The other thing is, one thing that I learned is that when I'm looking out there, what looks fast to the unpoliced eye versus what looks fast to the police is different, because it may seem like somebody's flying, but when you look at it, they're not. Now, there are people who are real. I don't want to desensitize it and not do something about the problem, because I do agree that there is an issue. But I am saying that when we look at the data, when we're looking, it's just not as much of a problem on some of the streets that people are indicating.
Now, in years past, we actually had the digital where you can see the numbers.
Yes.
So, and it did read because, you know, it was stationed near where I live at. And when I say data, I've been in meetings where it was said, basically the squeaky wheel gets the speed bump, and it's based on accidents. You know, if this place gets accidents, those words were used. I'm not talking about a couple years ago or last year, that data. I'm talking about past meetings where it's actually been said, basically, accidents, those are the ones that get that attention more so.
But I don't know who that data came from to know if the opinion of that person was warranted at how we implemented or put out speed humps. But I can tell you that the inspiration for the speed humps in this city haven't been accidents. It's been that recorded data.
Well, that's how they'll tell me that's the ones that get the attention. Those are the ones that get the attention.
And that's why we would lean on data. Those streets that are having cars at a high amount or quantity go over the speed limit, even at 30 miles an hour, that's where we would want to target.
Yeah, that's why I said we want to be proactive.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Zort?
Thank you, Ms. Carrington. I have a couple of things, because, again, it takes forever to get in, so my list gets longer. So as far as the speeding thing, it's not even just speeding, it's also running stop signs. I live at a 90-degree stop sign, and I promise you, people try to see how fast they can go around and not slide out. It's the traffic in my front. If my grandkids are out there, I don't let them play in the front yard. They have to play in the backyard because it's too dangerous. I've had cars run into my house before, so it is crazy. I don't know if it's still in effect, but I know there was, because I heard Ms. Carrington mention the word grant, and there was a state of Ohio grant where the police officers could come in on a special shift. It was called STEP. It's called Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, STEP. And when they come in just for traffic duty, and their pay,
We do that.
I'm pretty sure their pay gets reimbursed from the state.
It is.
So
do
we
do
get that reimbursement back from the state too? Are we
Um,
applying for that part?
Yes. So in order, and again, this is information. So I was talking to Interim Cheney about that. And so we only get a certain amount of hours. And then in order to get the next round of hours, you have to have 2 homicides, vehicular homicides, to get the next round. We don't have that. We do not have the traffic
Thank you, Lord. we don't.
problems. Thank you. That's exactly what I said.
Thank
I
you,
said,
Lord.
we don't have the problems that would give us the grant dollars to be able to offset that. So that should say something.
Yeah,
Madam Chair, when you're finished, may I
Sure.
speak?
absolutely.
I
But
waited
that's
for the
not
rest of the committee to go at least once. I was a good girl.
Thank you. That's not the only grant, though. I do know that the STEP grant, I'm glad we don't have those type of numbers in our city, but there are other grants out there. And that kind of goes back to our point of making sure that we knock on every door that potentially can be open for our city. I know Metro has tons of dollars, and they're wondering why we're not knocking on their door to say, hey, North College Hill is here. Go ahead, Ms. Clear.
I just wanted to quickly suggest, is it possible, because I'm not an expert in traffic data and traffic calming, would it be possible for someone to come talk to council or come talk to this committee about what they've seen that's effective in other cities similar to ours in terms of traffic calming?
Like a JMA engineer?
Like JMA or whoever they had work with them on this study, just to kind of give us a quick update and allow us to, because I'm not an expert in this, so it seems a lot of this is anecdotal, but would they be willing to come and speak and help us understand what it is we're looking at and what's been successful in other cities that are similar to ours, that
If you're
I think that would be helpful for me, because I can look at the state and say, oh, we should do that. But it's like, they know better than I do, So I would love to hear from them if they're willing to come and if that's okay with our committee chairperson.
Absolutely.
I think that would be helpful.
I think you guys could definitely schedule that. It just depends on what entity you want to come and talk to you.
Absolutely, I will. In fact, that goes back to my point of circling back around to our superintendent, to our police chief, to have the right people at the table so that the right questions can be asked. This is not my forte either, right? But I've seen enough, I've read enough. In fact, on my birthday this year, an officer, their SUV was flipped at the corner of Hamilton and Galbraith, and I broke my heart to see that occurred, right? And speed apparently was a factor. And thankfully, you're shaking your head, no, speed was not a factor?
It was a ran light.
He wasn't trying to get through the light quickly?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Well, he ran a red light, to Ms. Zorb and to Ms. Alexander's point. The concern is that there's an issue, and the issue needs to be addressed. And thankfully, that officer walked away, and the person he was with. So there's an issue. We need to look at a better way to create a better and safer North College Hill overall. I will do the due diligence to reach out to JMA. I would invite you all to be a part of that, and I'll also invite our interim chief and also our superintendent to see what we can do by August when those kids go back to school. We'll have a plan in place. Okay. Any other questions on this topic? All right. The next topic is the generators of the city. Ms. Dukestein, can you maybe elaborate? We kind of started to talk on it a little bit, but we'd never revisited that conversation. It is my understanding that the city has not acquired generators, but we rent them out. Can you clarify what that process looks like, please?
The process of renting?
Okay, so a couple of years ago, the city was it last year or 2024? I think it was. The city was without power for a number of days due to a windstorm, right? And then it happened again, right? And our most essential workers, police, fire, and public works, I believe public works all were impacted by that. Thank God I still had power, but the ones who needed the most did not, right? So what is the process in place if the city ever needs a generator?
We rent them.
Yeah, so that was my question. What is that process?
We contact the vendor and schedule a time frame where we can rent the generators. There's usually two, one for fire and one for police. Public Works doesn't need one, and there isn't a generator that is sizable for the senior building.
Is there a reason why we didn't just go out and buy our own?
Yes, we did talk about this extensively. I informed council that we were applying for grants and that we would not hear back from that grant probably about April or May. And I also talked about the fact that we needed to upgrade our electrical system. We talked about that in grave detail, and that we were in the process of doing that as well, because the generators that would fit the buildings and that are permanent, we don't have the electrical grid to support that, so we need to do both. And so it has been a process of us getting quotes and making sure that we have everything we need to upgrade the electric, and then we're also applying for grants so that we can get generators.
Do you know the name of that grant? And a roundabout of the dollar amount?
I don't know the dollar amount.
Will it fully?
So I didn't apply for that grant. Joe Plackey submitted for that grant. That's the point person that's working on that for police and fire.
Can any of the ARPA funds be used for that?
So that building is not 1,500, and it's not, I believe they can be, but it would be, I have to figure out. So yes, the bottom line to that is yes.
Okay.
However, we have
Mhm.
other dollars that we can secure to take care of that.
It's almost like we don't need it now, but when we need it, we'll have to go through a process. If we already have the dollars, we can acquire it. I would just not want our police nor our
We have
fire.
dollars that are specifically for that, grant dollars that are specifically for generators. So I would think we would want to leverage that and use the dollars that can be used more broadly in another space.
We've applied, but we've not been granted. So it's almost like we're saying, let's put all of our eggs in this one basket, and we would hope we get it. In the event we don't, well, then we're back at square one, right?
No, we're not.
Okay,
If we
so
are
what's the-
not back at square one,
Mhm.
if we don't get the dollars, then we can use the ARPA funds.
Okay.
And even to date, we would not be able to have a generator that we have to get the building up to code. We needed to figure out what we needed to do that.
Sure. We're talking two different things. I'm talking about the generators for police and fire that do not live at 1500. You're talking about getting 1500 up to code. Are you saying the police and
No.
fire are not up to code?
Yes.
Okay. That is news to me.
No, we
And-
talked about it last meeting. I specifically said that.
I thought it was addressed. I thought there was a plan in place to
There's a
address
plan in
that.
place, and we're going through the process. So we discovered that we needed to make sure that the electrical work was there and that we had to bring it up to code, and what that extensively was going to bring there too. I even specifically said there are two different buildings there, even though they fit together as one. One side is paneled another way, one way, and the other side is paneled another. And so we had to figure out what was needed to make it safe to install generators. It's not a quick process, because you also have to say, like, what kind of generators are going to support this building, and then what kind of electrical circuit is going to support that generator if it went out, and that has to be done for two different buildings.
So just to make sure I understand you clearly, although it's not on our agenda, I really believe that our police and fire deserve the best. I want to say cream of the crop, as they serve our city. Can you maybe provide a time frame of when you expect those buildings to be brought up to code?
So I think we will hear back, as I said, April or May for those grant dollars.
So those grant dollars that you're referencing are for code and for generator, and the name and the dollar amount, if you can provide that, if you have it.
You said those grant dollars are for,
So what I heard you mention is that we're going to hear back in April or May regarding the generators for the city. I also hear you saying we're going to hear back in April or May for the dollars that can bring the city's buildings up to code. Is that correct?
no, we're not applying for grant dollars to bring the city up to code. We're paying for that.
Is there a dollar cost? Or what does that cost?
For the two buildings,
Yes.
it was right around $40,000 for the to bring the electrical work up to code, and then the generators were. Let me see.
I know.
What did you say?
She thinks she remembers 200.
200,000? Not to bring the building up to code. That was the cost for it all in one lump sum.
I had the number of 238 in my head.
Yeah, it's somewhere around that. It is. So the generators, both the generators, and to bring both buildings up to code is right around. It's a little higher than 250.
So just give me the dollar amount for the grant, please.
I don't know the dollar amount for the
Okay.
grant because I didn't apply for it. That was Joe
Okay.
Plackey applied for that.
And we really don't know the impact on, and I'm presuming the general fund. So, for example, if this grant is if this grant is 10,000, we're still left with 228. I'm just trying to see.
It's more significant than
Okay.
10,000.
Okay. Okay. April or May, you'll let us know where we stand on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Council, are there any additional topics related to the generators, the rental, not the acquisition, but rentals for the city? Okay. With the time remaining that we have, I wanted to, again, we're going to skip around a bit. I wanted to maybe talk about $18-19. A citizen reached out to me and was just very concerned that there were squatters there. And in that property, I believe that it's boarded up, but I also believe that there's still accessibility for squatters. Is that something that is on our radar so that the citizens can know that when they're lying down and going to sleep at night, the house right next door to them is not being, or this house on the same street as them doesn't have someone attempting to reside in it with no electricity or, yeah. So what measures are in place to ensure that property remains boarded up and it doesn't become a public safety issue for the city?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I know at one time, that's the first I've heard of squatters. I don't know if anyone else have heard of squatting in that particular, at that property. I do know, I cannot speak for now if the police still does regular checks.
Okay.
I know whenever we get a call in Public Works, they will go by and check.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe at this particular point, that is, the city owns the building,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have to tell council this because they know they're responsible for building, so council needs to decide what we want to do with the building. If we want to sell it, if we want to, I mean, there was a whole lot of different conversations about what should happen with that property.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, so my purpose, purpose of bringing it up is not to talk about what we can do. It's more so just to ensure that the citizens who live on that street
mhm.
are not coming home again. It's getting warmer, so kids are playing outside.
Are
Don't
they
have to be
reporting it
fearful.
to city staff?
I did. On January 12th, an
Mhm.
officer actually came out, and I think on the following day, Ms. Duxton, you may know because I believe that Public Works boarded it up.
Mhm.
The concern now is that that board is kind of flimsy a little bit and can be just ripped down. So
It
that's
still doesn't change, I'm not trying to be any type of way. It still doesn't change the fact that the city owns a piece of property that we boarded up. We can board it up, but what's the plan after
Sure.
boarding it? I mean, if you just board it, you said it's flimsy, someone can take it down and still squat. So I think we just need to be proactive. We can send police officers every time someone gets a call. We can send Public Works over. But if something happens in the evening, Public Works can't get there till the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of what do we want to do?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Duxton.
So one thing I'd like to say, the price on the generators is $235,783.
Here's where my number came from.
And so the other thing that I would like to say as a retrospect to the building is that the police department do go by there and check. And so Public Works also, there had not been any squatters. I mean, just a general request, like, can we put some boards up? Yes. We haven't had that as an issue. So, but so we're being proactive by making sure that rounds are being made, that building is being checked on a regular basis to preempt anybody that may go in there unwarranted.
Madam Chair.
One moment, Ms. Claire.
Sure.
Just to let you know, citizens actually saw people in the home, or at least one person in that home.
Well,
And
when
at that
we
point-
went out, there was not
Okay.
anyone in the
Okay,
home.
well, I'm sure they would have vacated, seeing the cops coming or what have you. But either way, it's a vacant property owned by the city, and someone was in it. The length of time is unknown. Council, of course, would need to do something, but for my purpose in bringing it up tonight is to talk about the safety of the people who live on that street, to make sure that we have that on our radar from a safety perspective, and then council as a whole can talk about what other steps they want to do next. Go ahead, Ms. Claire.
Just really quickly, even if a property is vacant, there's still like baseline utility charges. Can you, I know you don't have this number off the top of your head. So what is the burn right now that it's costing the city to maintain that property? From a utilities, are we paying insurance on it? What do those numbers look like? So that, and I don't expect you to have it off the top of your head right now this minute, but
I actually looked at it when I saw it on the agenda. I don't have the exact number, but I know we're somewhere around $200 a month. What I can say is, from a city perspective, we're doing everything we can to preempt the safety of that building. If you all want to do something with that building, you have to let us know.
It's
Madam
also
Chair?
my understanding that the citizen noticed that the electrical box that produces power to the home was removed. At some point in time, whether we did it, whether Duke did it, it's not there. So,
I don't think it was removed. I think it was placed differently, so that, because when there's no one that occupies it, they want to be able to tap in and tap into it remotely. We definitely are still getting a bill.
okay, great. All right. Are there any?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Duke.
So-
Sorry, excuse me, Ms. Zorb.
I'm Zorb. She's
Yes,
16.
yes, you are. Yes.
But my question is, Ms. Dixon, we're paying $200 a month for what?
Water, electricity, and insurance.
Okay.
I can get an exact number, but
Yeah, that's concerning to me. My next question is, Madam Chair, what's your thoughts on sending this topic to the Planning Commission and see what their recommendation would be? I mean, that's kind of their forte, right?
I do believe that that is their forte. However, I think we just need to get a little bit more information on the home. In fact, the citizen was pleasantly happy to see that the grass was maintained and being cut. However, that the property is a nuisance. I would love just to get a little bit more information on this $200 a month that we're spending. I don't know how long we've owned the property. I think it's been 10 years, and if we've been paying that, that's $24,000 if we've owned the property for that length of time. So it's a lot of money that we have not seen a return on our investment. So I would love to get some additional questions answered regarding what Ms. Dukestein mentioned regarding electricity, the water, to confirm some other,
Property tax too.
and we're paying property taxes. So whatever that dollar amount is, if we can bring that back to
I
the
don't think we're paying property
We don't
tax
pay
on
property
it.
tax.
We don't pay
There's a
property
base
tax on
assessment.
something that we own.
Yeah. To Ms. Clear's point, if we can have that base assessment at our next, and let me also say this, there are topics that we talk about this evening that I believe you believe would not need to be addressed again until the next committee meeting. But I look at these meetings as being as working sessions, and that there may be a follow-up question where you will say, hey, committee, I have the baseline assessment. Is that something that we can get as it becomes available versus waiting until the next committee meeting in April? It allows council and this committee more so to continue to work. And if we have some information from you that you have, that'll allow us to best serve.
So I think that's a loaded question. I don't know where the paperwork is that administration submitted to the president of council, but it speaks to that scenario. If it's not an emergency, and then your working session should be public. So carrying it from one public meeting to the next is appropriate.
Ms. Dukestein, just to clarify, what we're talking about is case-by-case scenario. So, for example, we're looking for information from you that talks about the baseline assessment of $18, $19. That is information that council and this committee should be able to receive, and then if the public asks for it, should be made available. It is my understanding that waiting until April, it doesn't allow us to move forward proactively. If you are unable to do that, then we can pivot and look at another opportunity. But we would love to get the information that we've discussed this evening before our next committee meeting. That gives enough time. That gives at least 2.5, 3 weeks for the requested information. Is that something that you're able to honor? Or is that something outside of your scope?
So again, there was a document submitted to the president of council, I do not know where that document lies with council review. And it sets some parameters so that I can have a healthy balance at being able to manage my workload. And that question that you're asking me falls in the purview of that document. And so sometimes I think even though you may believe that it is in my wheelhouse to produce it before, it may or may not be. I promise if I have the ability to address it beforehand, I will, but I do want to establish some precedents so that you're not on each individual base, as you said, case by case situation, deciding when it is that I can and cannot deliver stuff because you don't have the visibility to what my workload is. I oftentimes do report to Mayor and tell her what I have going on. She will say, well, can we do this? Can we move it up? She and I are in constant communication about what's on my schedule, agenda, if I can, and it's not just me. Sometimes it requires me to reach out to others. So I was telling another council member, like one day, this within the last 2 weeks, I had surprisingly the state of Ohio here twice within 1 week to our surprise. So I just want to make sure that we establish parameters with that document. I don't know where it's at just yet. Mayor, do you know?
Just to clarify something, I'm not sure what you're talking about a document, but what I do know is that we are a charter city, and everything that I'm asking for falls right in line with our charter. If there are times in which you're unable, even if it comes down to your administrative report, if there are ever times that you're not able to produce it, I believe that we can offer grace. What I don't want to have happen is that we go month after month after month, and we're having to ask 2 and 3 and 10 times. That's not been the case, thankfully. But that way we can have something in place that says, hey, council, I am working on this for you. I'll give this to you by X, Y, and Z date. That's what we would like as a charter city. I'm not sure if your document follows the charter or what have you. What I would love for our city to do is to maybe maybe look at the charter and just ensure that we're all in alignment together. Every question that I believe I've asked, and I believe other council members have asked, are questions that allow us to best serve. Some things that we've talked about tonight, it falls within your lap, and we just want to be able to serve everyone in a timely fashion. And I do understand your workload. I do. However, there may be some other areas that we can collaborate, and when I say we, I mean council and yourself, to better streamline processes. To go back to the report, if the report had a lot more information, it would minimize the number of questions that we had monthly. So if you can just maybe chew on that, we can talk about it next time. If there are no any questions from anyone else, administration. All right, dismissing or adjourning at 8:05. Thank you.